Hello and welcome to Ula Tea Leaf Readings. My name is Lenor and tonight I'm going to be reading your tea leaves. This is a horoscope for Scorpio. If Scorpio is your solar, lunar, ascendant / rising sign, then this is a message for you. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. And so tonight we have, I know, don't worry, but don't worry. We have the Tower card. I'm always like, okay, here we go when we see the Tower card. But, you know, as I'm setting up for my readings, I will take a moment to, you know, kind of go inside myself and look for any kind of imagery or sensations or impressions and you know, before I get started. And so I just want to say that it doesn't seem like a current Tower moment. Now we're going to look at the tea leaves because of course they might reveal something different. But I feel like this is something that is old. Okay, it's something that happened. Now, if you are unfamiliar with the Tower card, this is usually an indicator of, you know, some kind of fundamental part of your life, something very important to the way that you live, kind of falling apart, right? This can be relationships. This could be somebody transitioning from life into the other realms. This could be a health issue, financial, you know, all these kinds of things. Now, I don't want to worry you. Again, I think this is an old thing. And that's the thing about The thing about Tower energy is that, yeah, of course, it's going to linger throughout our lives. You know, it's woven into the fabric of our being. So let's see what this has to do with the with the actual tea leaves. Now, immediately I'm seeing this large owl. You can see the head right here. Okay, you can see the eyes, the beak, the wings are open. Okay, and then we're gonna come back to it. I want to take a look and see. Oh wow! So we have the sign of Saturn right here. Okay, so the symbol of Saturn. So we have Saturn energy, which is my favorite. Now I often say on here, I'm not aligned with any group or institution or religion or anything like that. But one of the few things I do kind of identify myself as is a child of Saturn. And that's not in any kind of system of thinking, but Saturn is very present in my own work. Okay, so let's take a look. We have this owl. Okay, we also have that Saturn energy. Now, the Saturn energy is in alchemy, represented in the first process of alchemy, which is the refinement of the prima materia, the base, or not the base model, the material that kind of is the life of all things. It is the stuff that we form together to create. And so in this first process where Saturn is present, and Saturn is related to lead, right? The base metal lead. So during this process, we are kind of purifying or refining that material, that base material, right? The prima materia. And so basically, if you think about this in spiritual alchemy, now I'm not going to talk so much about chemical or like plant alchemy because that's a little more complex. And honestly, I don't study physical alchemy. I've read about it. I don't know that much about it. But in spiritual alchemy, okay, so this would be the beginning stages of kind of integration, right? Or what we call individuation, right? So the process of kind of beginning to do some of that self-archaeology, looking into our past, looking into not only some of the ways that we handle things, but where do they reach back to, right? And you know, this is kind of like therapy stuff, right? Looking at our old traumas, looking at how we were raised, looking at you know, our conditioning and our coping mechanisms and our reaction, you know, all these kinds of things. So I look at this and I see we have this owl, and the owl is the watcher. Okay, the owl is the observer. The owl is also a sign of wisdom. We know. Now, wisdom is not the same as knowledge. To know something is to know something. To be wise and endowed with wisdom about something, that is knowledge transmuted. That means that not only do you know about it, but you have put it into practice. You know it inside and out, right? We know this about reading a book, right? You can read a book. It tells you how to, well, I don't know, like let's say a how-to on how to clean dishes. Now, you might know, right? It says get a sponge, get some soap, get some water, you know, you scrub it, you'd rinse it, and then dry it, right? Well, here's the thing. There are different kinds of debris on our dishes. You know, it might be that it leaves streaks or it's oily or whatever. This is a really silly example, but it takes practice, okay? Somebody can tell you how to do something. You can read how to do something. That doesn't mean that you really have a functional understanding. So when we see the owl, to me that says you do. You absolutely do. And that tells me you are deep in your individuation process. You are working through and working on integrating parts of yourself that maybe you have forgotten. Maybe there are parts of yourself that you've shoved into that shadowy place, what we call the shadow, right? This is where we put things that we don't want to really know about ourselves, or behaviors that we don't, they're just things that we don't like, right? I don't like this. I'm not going to identify my impulse towards this as being part of myself. So I'm going to push it into this place where I don't look at it, and it goes into the shadow. And it grows, you know, like mold grows in a dark, damp place. It grows and it spreads and it gets wildly out of control. But when we're doing this individuation process, we're really looking at the thing. We are illuminating it, okay? So that is that wisdom. And so to me, I feel that this has been... Well, and I just know, because I know this kind of work, it is very involved. This is the work of usually like an adept, right? Somebody who is not only initiated, but they have put in some time. So I know that you are a very spiritual person. And I do believe that this was brought on by some kind of cataclysm in your life. And I think probably pretty early, okay? So I think that at times you can be maybe introspective to a fault. You ruminate, right? Something comes up, you start looking at it and you start thinking about it and going over it and going over it and going. And then, you know, you spiral, don't we all? You know, if I get fixated on some part of my life or some part of myself or whatever that I find difficult and I can't get out of that loop of thinking, I start to really become unbalanced in other parts of my life. And so, you know, I think that is something to be aware of about yourself. And I think that you know that. I think that you know that, Scorpio. But you're in this beautiful, beautiful place. And I can see you as kind of a magician, a high priestess, a hierophant, somewhere in there, somewhere on the spectrum of these things. Magical practitioner, or maybe you are psychically inclined, you are a creator, you are somebody who takes concepts and brings them into the manifest, but also you're very intuitive, okay? You have this psychic ability, you have probably maybe some kind of clairvoyance or ability to read people or something like this. Maybe even premonitions. And then with the Hierophant, yeah, I think that you are devoted to the systems that you find appealing to you. Scorpios love order, okay? That might not be how you're living, but you are like, you know, as they say for kids, right? I'm not saying you're like a child, but I think this is true of all people, and this is just the saying that people have for children, is that children thrive with rules, right? When they have a routine, when they know what they need to do, when they have rules and they know, you know, they can anticipate how the day is going to go. And I find this to be true, being a parent. You know, I have a 4-year-old. She does really well. And she's a Gemini, right? So she's a little chaotic. Yeah, she needs some help staying on task sometimes. But when we don't have kind of a system worked out and a routine worked out, I can see it's not very helpful for her. She really does excel when she knows what's going on and she knows what she needs to be doing. So, and I think this is true of adults as well. Now, we're the ones that are making our own rules, right? And we're the ones making our own routines. So when you stay in your routines, I think that you really do thrive quite a bit. Now, let's take a look. I want to turn this. I know we have 6s kind of everywhere. This one's actually... Oh, it looks like my name, kind of. Every once in a while, I'll see my name. Look, L-E. This looks like an H or an N. N-O-R. Kind of does look like. It kind of does look like my name. Yeah, but it also looks like some other things. Let's see. So it looks like we have at least the E. And I'm going to read this as, this one looks like H-O-T right here. H-O-T. H-O-T. And then this one's, it almost looks like it says B or, what is it? Like maybe, let me see out here. I don't know. Like L-E hot, le hot, something, but it does look like H-O-T. And this one looks like an E for sure. So if you can see what that is, you tell me. Of course, I'm going to see my own name. You might see something else. This one actually looks like lore, L-O-R-E, lore. And this one does look like hot. I don't know how else to look at it. I'm like, okay, maybe it's going to be hot. It's pretty hot today here. It's very humid, actually. So we're going to read that as lore and hot. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so we have a person... We have a person standing here. You can see the arms, the head, the body. Okay, and then over here it looks like we have a face. You can see maybe glasses, the head, the mouth. Now it looks like we have 101, a palm tree. I feel like I'm getting like a very like late 80s, early 90s energy for some reason. I feel like this is a time that you go back to a lot. This era in the 80s, in the 90s, early 90s. You know, maybe this is a time where life was pretty good. The family was all together. Maybe you were, now if you're around my age, I was a kid, I was young. But if you're older, then maybe you were in school, you know, or maybe you were starting your family, or, you know, maybe you were getting into, you know, your middle ages. And middle age, not Middle Ages Europe. But yes, I just feel like there's just a vibe about this time period. And maybe it's the aesthetic, but I don't think so. I think that it really is this feeling of, and I can almost imagine like going to the ocean for some reason, like maybe going on trips with your family to a place that had a lot of water. Okay. Kind of feels like maybe even staying in a cabin or like a little beach house or something. And I feel like sometimes, you know, when the days are hard and you think back on these old times and you kind of lament what's going on or what has transpired, I feel like you really romanticize this time period. Now, here's the interesting thing to me is that I feel like around this time, you started having a visitation, or you started having visitations. Maybe it was one visitation, maybe it was a lot, maybe it was constant, and maybe it still continues to be. But it feels like there is an intelligence, and it's very much this face. As soon as I saw this, I was like, that reminds me of like a macrobe or some kind of like interdimensional intelligence, maybe even like alien. And I know it's kind of a weird concept, but listen, these readings are never normal. So, yeah, it does. It feels like something probably coming through in dreams, maybe also perceivable in your waking life. I kind of almost wonder at times if you hear this person, this intelligence, and I wonder if sometimes you worry that you're hearing things. But I think here it is that they do talk to you. And I don't think it's like full on, you know, like conversations back and forth happening. But I think sometimes you do. It's almost kind of like an invasive thought, right? Where it's something that comes into your mind. It doesn't seem to have any connection to outside stimuli, and it doesn't feel like it's an internal dialogue. It's just something that it's very, you know, it's very much outside of what your like line of thinking is. Okay, so I'm at the grocery store. I'm looking at, you know, what kind of string cheese am I getting? Am I going to get the cheddar one my daughter likes? Or am I going to get the mozzarella ones that I like? I don't know. You know, and I'm looking at prices. And then suddenly, it's like I hear something. Like, hear somebody say something to me. But it's in my head, right? And it's not something that's constant. It's not even always something that is perceivable. I don't understand. what is it? What did they say even? Now listen, if I'm using my ears or not, I have a hard time understanding what people are saying. I have to have people repeat themselves sometimes, more than once. Excuse me. And so, you know, I think it's something like this. And I think that you have had auditory kind of communications with them. Okay? Now this person over here, I feel like I really believe that somebody else in your family, if you know this or not, is also attached to this intelligence. And this is why I wonder if this is kind of if this is extraterrestrial. Because, and this can be, I mean, it's in a lot of different, like say jinn, right? Jinn will attach themselves to a household or to a line of people, right? Not always, but they can, okay? So it could be something like that. It could be like a family kind of, you know, bloodline thing where it sticks with the family. But I do believe there's somebody in the family that also knows this being. They might not be as open-minded and understand what it is, but I do believe that there's somebody. And if there's somebody in your family, especially if they believe that they've been abducted or they've had contact with like aliens or, you know, ultra-dimensional beings or anything like this. Now, maybe other people in the family think, okay, they have mental health issues, and they might also have those, right? But I do think that this is something that is legitimately happening, not only to them, but to you. And I think you will know who I'm talking about, but you might not, right? It might be something that they hide. They maybe don't tell anybody about it. Actually, you know, though I seem fairly open about the things that, you know, I've experienced or the things that, you know, I am open-minded to. I haven't necessarily been in touch with aliens, but you know, I'm sure, you know, that doesn't seem outside of the realm of plausibility, right? I don't necessarily talk to people about these things within my family or the people that I know in real life. A little bit, you know, if they want to talk about it, I will definitely get into it. But I don't always, or actually pretty rarely, will I volunteer this information. Unless it's somebody who I know is on the level, right? Like my husband. Shout out to Dove and Serpent Tarot. My husband over there, Paul. He's amazing. Go check out his readings. You know, I'll talk to him about anything. He knows all my strange stories. But, you know, sometimes we just don't talk to the people that we know too much about things because, listen, they might not understand. And, you know, if you are a spiritual being, if you are somebody who, you know, kind of has these interactions, or you are a practitioner, you do magic, divination, whatever, then yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know that not everybody is receptive to the things that we are open to. And that's okay, you know. And that's why I don't talk to people about them unless they want to talk about them. Because, you know, I think it makes people uncomfortable, or, you know, they just don't, it's something they don't even think about. A lot of people in life don't even think about this stuff very much. So, you know, it's kind of like sometimes you got to go looking for this information. So if it is the case that you don't know of anybody in your family, it might be worth doing some of that kind of, you know, family archaeological, you know, work there. Start lifting up the rugs and looking behind the doors and seeing what's going on here. Are there other magically inclined people? Are there other diviners or mediums or psychics in the family? And you will be surprised, more often than not, there usually are. We just don't necessarily know. Now, we also have, this looks like a werewolf right here. You can see the eye, the mouth, the head, the little earries. We have the arm reaching down. We have the legs. So yeah, this is a reading that's full of all kinds of different creatures and things. Now we also have a goddess who is seated, okay, enthroned. And to me, she's holding a flower. Okay, so for me, I'm looking at this as Persephone. And, and also the hearth. And that is Hestia, I think. Yes. So we have a mother goddess. We have a middle goddess here. And with the dogged beast. It's interesting too. I was just listening to Wolf at the Door earlier this morning. I was listening to Radiohead. So I do feel, yeah, there's kind of I'm imagining somebody coming into your life who's quite brutal. They don't necessarily make that apparent about themselves. I think it's somebody who is maybe trying to insert themselves into your life in some way to maybe be close to you. But they seem like a very cold person, almost kind of like a sociopath or something. And I shouldn't say that word so lightly, but I know these terminologies are overused. But I do feel like it's somebody who they lack empathy, but they're really a chameleon. And they seem to be kind of trying to enter your household in some way, your domestic life. This isn't business. Although they might make it seem like it's business, that is not their intent. I feel like they're trying to kind of worm their way in. Now, I think that you already know. You have your spidey senses going off. You have this strong mother, maybe father, pater energy, right? Protective of your domain of yours. Now, we also have the hearth, though. Now, the hearth is the fireplace, right? This is where people used to keep their house warm, where they used to cook all of their meals. And so a very important place. It also took a lot of work to keep it going, especially in the cold months or in those rainy months when, if wood wasn't cut and put away and kept dry and your wood got wet, you were in trouble, right? Or same with coal or whatever they were using to burn. So there's a whole lot of work and process around keeping the warmth in the house, keeping the fires going, the place where you can create sustenance, right? And so I do, and we have the eye, okay? So the evil eye as well. I feel like there's just a sense of really needing to protect yourself. This energy protecting you, you already feel this person arriving or they've arrived. I feel like, at times it's almost like something's up with this person, but you don't want to be rude. You don't want to assume. You don't want to say the wrong things. You know what I mean? So, you have to follow your intuition. Sometimes we have to be so brutal about our safety. Just absolutely putting up those boundaries and sticking to them. I think, when I was younger, before I had my daughter, absolutely had trouble keeping boundaries with people. I let people kind of manipulate me, sometimes emotionally, or, I would give in to the excuses or the asking, pestering. And I don't know. I guess because I had a daughter or a child in general, doesn't have to just be that she's a daughter, but I just can't put up with it anymore. If something feels wrong, no. There's no getting around mama. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I say no and that's no. You know, it's the privacy issue is a big deal in our household. The, you know, just who we let into our lives is a big deal. My husband is very, shout out to Dove and Serpent Tarot again. My husband's very solitary. He is a wonderfully charming and warm and inviting person, but he doesn't like people in our private lives, you know, just because of his nature. And I myself am solitary as well. So we don't really let anybody in. We have a few chosen people and that's about it, right? And I think just having a family, it strengthens that for us anyways. Now, you're a Scorpio, so you maybe already had that, right? He's a water sign. I'm a Virgo. So it's just, you know, we had to learn a little bit more how to be a little bit more like, nope, absolutely not, you know? But I feel like this person is just something about them that just really it makes you uncomfortable, I think. So be wary of that. Be aware and beware. Oh, be aware and be wary. Yeah. So we have a peach right in the middle. We also have something that says hi. Right here, hi. We have a mermaid, we have a fish, we have a bird trying to catch a fish. This ocean energy again, question mark. So I feel like this is, who is this? This person keeps coming up to me. It feels like somebody who you grew up with or they raised you or something. Maybe it's like an extended family member or a good friend, but it's like there's such a love here, and I feel like they transitioned when you were fairly young, but they were young as well. I mean, relatively, right? And I feel peaches, like something about peaches, like they always were eating them or they had a peach tree or something. And you think of peaches when you think. When you have a peach, you think of them. That's what I'm trying to say. There's also the ocean. There's a lot of the ocean. Now, I also feel like this is somebody who is maybe pretty successful, okay? And I feel like there's been a pivot in your life because of, you know, I've been doing your readings for a couple of years now, and I've watched the kind of arc of the stories, and I feel like a lot of you Scorpios have had some big transitions, at least since 2020, and we all know what happened there, right? A lot of people had to change their lives up, but Scorpios, a lot of you had to really, I think, kind of decide what is going to be right for you going forward. Are you going to live the same way you've been living, or am I going to change my life? Or maybe I'm going to move, maybe I'm going to like get a smaller house or maybe a bigger place, or, you know, whatever. I think these fundamental things you've been changing, right, over the last few years. And I feel like there are times where you really worry, like, am I going to ever be as successful as I want to be? I keep changing stuff. It doesn't seem to fully take hold. But I feel like in this next year, right, 2024 into 2025, you are going to be really getting into that place where things are going to be happening for you. And I think that monetary payoff will be coming. okay? If it's not already here, okay? I feel like this is going to end up being probably a pretty big end of the year, and the beginning of next year will definitely continue with that energy. Okay, let's see. We have the Wild Offering Oracle cards, and I'm just going to flip through and stop where it feels right. Okay. It says feelings, emotions want to be felt. You really can't surrender something until you deeply feel it. Allow me, dear divine, to offer all emotions to you, feeling them fully so they no longer hold me captive. Oh, yes. It's not always easy, though. It's not always easy. A couple of years ago now, I went through a kind of therapy, and let me think, is it called, I think it's called CPT, right? Yeah, I think it's called CPT. It's for people with PTSD, and I have CPTSD. And this is a kind of therapy where you focus on particular traumas or events within the trauma, right? And you go through this process of kind of going through it, talking about it, trying to kind of restructure the way that you think about it, your relationship to it. How has this thing that happened, or these things that have happened, affect your decision making, how you react to things, your, coping mechanisms, defense mechanisms. And it was profoundly difficult. I mean, it was maybe some of the hardest few months of my life. And even in some ways harder than the trauma. The trauma went on for a long time for me, the abuse that when I was a kid. But it was really difficult. But I'll tell you what, now it's not fixed. I will never say that, it just goes away. But it made things more manageable for me. And here's the thing, though. It has to happen, this looking at these pains that we have, these feelings that we have, and what they're related to, it has to happen in its own time, right? That therapy I went through, if I would have done that, years ago, it wouldn't have, I don't think it would have been a good idea for me, because I was very unstable. But I think that everything comes in its right time. And I know I'm talking about myself, and I know I'll get some comments. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. This is just how I read, okay? And I think it's mostly the new people that come in. They're like, why are you talking about your... This is how I read, baby. I just do. I go on and on. But anyways, it's all in its right time. So don't push yourself, but also don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to look at the things that you need to and feel the things that you need to feel sometimes. Because, man, I'll tell you what, holding those secrets, carrying that pain, it will destroy you. Maybe not immediately, but it will. Over a long, it's like slowly taking poison. So, something to think about anyways. I like these cards. They make me think a lot. So anyways, Scorpio, I'm going to tell you I love you because I do, and thank you so much for spending this time with me. It's always such an honor to be able to bring these messages to you. And if you would be so kind as to like the video, it helps the channel a lot. If you want to subscribe, please go ahead and do that. It's free to subscribe. And if you want to leave a comment, please do. I read them all. All right. I love you, Scorpio. Take care of yourself. We'll talk in a few days. Good night.